If you're a retiree or pre-retiree and you're curious about how to set up your beneficiaries and how to make sure that your beneficiaries inherit exactly what you want them to inherit, you're in the right spot. I'm going to cover all of that in today's video. I'm Raul Shah. I'm the CEO of DocShah Financial. We are a wealth management practice that helps retirees and pre-retirees just like you save money on their taxes, and we also manage their investment accounts and their retirement accounts to make sure that you have one cohesive financial strategy in place. The slides you're viewing are directly from my retirement planning course that I teach at Johns Hopkins University, which is also my alma mater. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Step one is we have to understand what beneficiaries are. A lot of people think that if they have a will, that their assets are going to be distributed exactly how they wish. And that's actually not the case. In fact, if you don't have beneficiaries listed on your brokerage account or your retirement accounts, your assets will likely wind up going through probate, which is a very long, expensive, and painful process where the court determines who gets what. You do not want to leave your heirs scrambling in that type of a situation. The most simple solution is to name beneficiaries on your investment accounts. Those investment accounts then will bypass probate and your beneficiaries will get what you intended them to get without the hassle of going through a court system. So there's two types of beneficiaries. We have primary beneficiaries and we have contingent beneficiaries. These are just fancy ways of saying who's in line first and who's in line second. It's important to note that you can have up to 10 primary beneficiaries and even up to 10 contingent beneficiaries, and you can divide the pie however you feel like. So if we just use a very basic example, if you're a married couple, well, maybe your primary beneficiary is your spouse, and you want them to inherit 100% of your assets. But now the question remains, what if something happens to you and your spouse? Well, that's where your contingent beneficiaries come into play. And you can name, for example, your children as contingent beneficiaries. If you have 2 kids, you can name both of them as contingent beneficiaries. And therefore, if something happens to you and your wife, well, now the assets will pass to your contingent beneficiaries. So it's all about who's in line. If something happens to the account owner, which in this case is you watching this video, your primary beneficiary will inherit it. If something happens to you and the primary beneficiary, then your contingent beneficiaries will inherit it. And this is true for your investment account, like your brokerage account, and it's also true for your retirement accounts, like your 401k, your 403b, your traditional IRA, your Roth IRA, and so on and so forth. Your beneficiaries are flexible. You can change them whenever you feel like, and generally speaking, it's as easy as logging into your custodian's platform like Charles Schwab, Fidelity, E-Trade, and just going over and actually changing the beneficiaries right there on the site from a drop-down menu. So it's very simple to do, and you can change it at any point in time. Whenever I set up accounts for clients at DocShah Financial, I always make sure that they have their primary beneficiary set up and their contingent beneficiary set up on every single investment account that we manage. Typically, when I onboard clients, we make sure that they have a tax-deferred account, a taxable account, and a tax-free account. So we cover all of the tax classifications, giving you full tax diversity going all the way through your retirement. It's very important to have all these 3 types of accounts open. Now I want to take it one layer deeper. You see, it's not enough to just set up your beneficiaries in terms of primary and contingent, although you are probably well ahead of a lot of your peers who don't do that. You would be shocked at how many people leave beneficiaries off of their investment accounts. But we're going to take it one layer deeper, and we're going to talk about distribution. A lot of people are very surprised to know that you can actually control the ways that your assets are distributed, and people don't realize that this layer exists. And there's 2 types of distribution methods. There is what we call per stirpes, which is by branch, and we have per capita, which is by head. Now, per stirpes, the way to think about this is that it keeps your money within the family branch, and per capita means that the money is split between surviving beneficiaries. Think of per stirpes as more vertical, and think of per capita as more horizontal. So let's use a very simple example. Let's say that you have 2 primary beneficiaries on your account, and it's your 2 children, Ben and Anna. And let's say that Ben unfortunately predeceases you. And let's say that you decide that Ben will inherit 50% of your assets and Anna will inherit the other 50%. So they're getting an equal split. If Ben predeceases you, his 50% slice of the pie will actually continue down his family branch to his 2 children. And each children will get 25%. If he had 4 children, they would each get 12.5%. That's per stirpes. It's funneling down the family branch. Now, if we look at per capita, in that same example, if Ben predeceases the account holder, his money doesn't funnel down to his children. It actually moves horizontally to Anna. And now Anna stands to inherit Ben's 50% share. So she will inherit 100% of that account. So that's the different layers in terms of how those actual assets are distributed, per stirpes or per capita. And it's a very important distinction that, of course, I always set up to the client's wishes whenever we open their accounts at DocShah Financial. Now let's take it to the next slide. And I know there's a lot of text on the screen, but I'm going to walk you through everything, so just pay attention to me for now. You've really got three different beneficiary classifications. You've got eligible designated beneficiaries, you've got non-eligible designated beneficiaries, and then you've got your spouse, which is a very special case, and a spousal beneficiary has their own special rules. Eligible designated beneficiaries are typically the following: minor children, disabled individuals, chronically ill individuals, or someone who's not more than 10 years younger than you. These beneficiaries, because they are generally close to you in age, or they're disabled or chronically ill, they can actually stretch the distribution of their inheritance over their lifetime. So that's a fancy way of saying if they inherit your accounts, they will take money out of their account based on their own individual life expectancy factor, but they get to do so over their lifetime, as opposed to a non-eligible designated beneficiary. So a non-eligible designated beneficiary include the following: adult children, grandchildren, anyone who is more than 10 years younger than you, so someone who's very far in age, much younger than you, and most trusts. This is generally the default category that most beneficiaries lie in. So for example, if you're married and you have adult children, they're likely going to be non-eligible designated beneficiaries, and their inheritance rules differ. In that case, most of the time they have to take money out of their accounts that they inherit within 10 years. There's no lifetime stretch rule as there is for eligible designated beneficiaries. Now let's think about this logically and ask ourselves why that's the case. So let's use a very simple example. Let's say that you pass away and your adult son inherits your traditional IRA. If you hadn't started taking RMDs yet, your son has 10 years to empty that account. He can do it at the same cadence, so the same amount every year for 10 years, or he can withdraw nothing and just pull it all out in 10 years, although that would not be advisable because his tax rate would go up dramatically. If you had already started taking your RMDs, well then your adult child has to take those RMDs according to his life expectancy, but he must do so within that 10-year window as well. Now there's a very logical reason for why this exists, even though I know it sounds very complicated. Think about if you were the IRS. You have waited for decades to collect taxes on the original account owner's traditional IRA because that's a tax-deferred account, and the IRS has just been waiting to collect taxes on that pre-tax money. Now, if that person passes and it goes to somebody much younger than him, like their adult child, the IRS is not going to wait another lifetime to collect taxes on those accounts. They're going to force you to take that money out within 10 years so that they can actually collect the tax revenue that they're entitled to according to the original account owner's rules and general life expectancy. So again, it can get very complicated here, which is why it's really important that you work with a qualified professional. And this is something that we cover it with clients at DocShah Financial whenever it's appropriate for all of our retirees and pre-retirees. The last beneficiary classification is your spouse. These are generally the most flexible. You know, you have a lot of options when you inherit retirement accounts as a spouse. You can roll it into your own IRA, you can delay required withdrawals, and you can continue tax-deferred or tax-free growth for many years. And again, if that seems complicated, the reason why is very simple is because spouses are viewed as a continuation of the household. So there you guys have it. That's everything on beneficiaries and inheritance. You have primaries, you have contingents, you can divide the pie however you want. You can have it per stirpe or per capita, so you can control the distribution channels and how the assets actually filter through. And then you've got different classifications of beneficiaries, which will determine how they will inherit the assets and the taxation and the time frame in which they must distribute those assets to themselves. If this is too complicated and you need help with this or anything else in your financial situation, just shoot me an email, raul@docshahfinancial.com. I'd love to hear from you and your personal situation and how I could help. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.